I noticed some of you looking at your orders of service. Yes, we are playing with you. We've mixed it up, but not on purpose. Today, I want to explore with you this notion of dark humor, or humor that hurts. I know we've been laughing over the last couple of weeks, and we will laugh next week. But this week, we're going to explore the darker side of humor. And we all know what this generally means. It is humor that is used to diminish or demean others so that we can exploit them or cause harm and not feel guilty. History is filled with this type of humor. There's lots of examples, from German cartoons and jokes about Jews before World War II to politicians making fun of people with disabilities. We all know about this type of destructive humor, and I believe that we as a people, as a liberal faith, we are learning how to stand up to it. We're learning counter moves. We're learning to take pictures of people when they're protesting. We're learning how to use social media to call people out. Whether it be politicians or dentists, we are striving as Unitarian Universalists to combat dark humor. And we as a liberal community need to learn and continue to learn to combat that othering of current targets. And we need to have conversations at work, at home, and in our families. I've heard all of you this year practice with me so that you can practice with your family, especially around Thanksgiving. We had some very interesting conversations. And we're learning with each other how we can be allies and to help so that we're not causing more harm as we're trying to do good. And that's really important. We're learning to be allies, and we're not always doing it perfectly, but I see more and more instances where we're collaborating with others who are calling out. We're calling people out who are making fun of people with disabilities, who have different races, different religions, ages, or classes. We're learning how the new language of othering others from us. And in my family, which is so big and diverse, it feels like a micro example of the world. I've got Catholics and Mormons and Unitarian Universalists, and even now some closeted Unitarian Universalists. No matter how fundamental we are as a family, or members of our family are, they too are having, and we are having conversations at the outrage we're feeling about this othering, this making fun of. I have a nephew, and I've talked about him. He's got autism, and it really hurt my sister-in-law, who's Mormon, that, people with disabilities were being made fun of on a national platform. And she went back to her Mormon church and had a conversation about it. There's hope. I want to offer you hope. Although we're not there, and we need to keep striving. There are moments of hope. These are not conversations I would have had with my family 30 years ago. So while there's all these good things going on, I want to hold up some things that maybe we're not doing as well. Another description of dark humor, which I just learned from a congregant, is humor that's satirical in nature, but which non-aware persons or prejudiced persons identify with, but they don't get that it's satire. Thank you, Sam. Thomas Ford, so I had to go look it up after a couple of weeks ago when he told me about this, and I found a professor of psychology who wrote, "The problem is that in order for humor to be realized, its goal of subverting prejudice, the audience must understand and appreciate that intention. There's no guarantee that they will." That was very disheartening. So sometimes when using humor that way, when we think we're calling out, we're actually saying it's okay to think that way. And in his article, he uses Archie Bunker, which is the example I gave a few weeks ago of something that I found really transformative. He says that while some people found Archie Bunker liberating, others found the skit reinforcing all of their negative views on women, people of color, and minorities. It's something to think about. It's something to think about. And another example that I was given was Steve Colbert. I see people shaking their heads, so I'm not saying something new to a lot of you. That Steve Colbert, some people thought he wasn't joking. It's very disheartening. So in this exploration of humor, we need to be careful. I'm doing this so we think more, so that we're more intentional. So I'm going to give you another example. I would like to hold up for consideration another side of dark humor. Not one that's easy for us as liberals to get self-congratulatory about. It's a subtler side of humor. And it's a place where it can cut and bite into our daily life. I want you to sit quietly and think about a situation when you were sitting around with a group of friends and you're joking about your partners or your kids or your family members. Do you have a picture in your mind? And I want you to think about how that made you feel with this practice of Tong Lin. With just noticing. Ford says in his same article that he found in his studies that humor, most of the time, prejudiced people conceal their true beliefs and attitudes because they fear the criticism of others. They express prejudice only when the norms in a given context clearly communicate approval to do so. They need something in the immediate environment to give them permission so that they feel safe to express their prejudice. So people use jokes to test social situations. Did you know that? I did not know that. I'm glad to see some heads shaking. People are looking for signs that it's okay for them to use prejudice in this context. So what are we sending to people in our lives when we make fun of our kids or our partners, when we tell, just jokes? Are we giving the message that it's okay to talk disparagingly against children in general, like in Chrysanthemum that Katie gave us? Is that okay when we tell jokes? I have to admit to you that this is hard. I do joke about my children. I make jokes about my kids. And I've had to think about how that would feel if my boy were in the room. So this is the harder side of humor. It's easy for me as a mother of boys to call people out when they're degrading men. I get that. I don't let people do that. But when my friends are joking, it's hard. I've had to really think about humor in ways that I didn't want to, that make me uncomfortable. And I invite you to do the same. So sometimes I catch myself and I want to backpedal. So how do we do that? What are the ways that we can do that? Do we say, hey, wait a minute, I'm uncomfortable? So what I want to offer you is a plan, something that I am going to do. I have a friend who helps me with gossip. We early on when we started our practice, we decided that we were going to help each other to stop gossiping. And so we call each other out. We talk to each other about gossiping. When we're talking about our friends, we check each other. And so what I want to offer to you is that solution. Maybe that's something you could do to find a partner. I have enjoyed talking to you all about humor. So I invite you to get a partner to talk about humor and how we use it and how we laugh. Because the other side of dark humor is when we use it on ourselves. And a number of people have come up to me after a sermon and said, I am no longer going to be the butt end of a joke in my family. How many of us do this? And you don't have to raise your hands. I have a brother who's that person in my family. And I'm going to go home and talk to him about it. How do we use humor in our lives? How do we look at humor? It's not easy. It's complicated, right? It's a complicated question. And in this work for justice, we can begin with ourselves, our homes and our workplaces, our friendships and our communities. We can ask ourselves hard questions. We can think about it. And we can use a practice like Tonglen to look at a situation deeply and to breathe in some compassion. One of the things I don't want you to do in this series of humor is to walk away feeling bad about yourselves. I want you to think about this in ways that are helpful and not diminishing. I want you to think about ways that you can use humor to lighten yourself and to bring life and laughter into our lives. I mean, every time I move, I know I am going to lose things along the way. Every time. And my roommate can attest to it. I will leave a trail of keys, of my water bottles, strewn all across every office space or place I go. And I laugh about it because it breaks the tension. I'm nervous, it's hard to move. So humor is not bad. We just have to think about the ways we're using it. We as a people need humor. We need to laugh. And I promise next week it will be a lighter subject. But there is a dark side to humor that we need to be absolutely vigilant against, because it is that way in to further injustice. And we are a justice-seeking people. We are a people of love and care and compassion. I know you all well. We have a big heart, and we can learn together to do better. And the people said, Amen. So now let us close our service with this song, number 298, Wake Now My Senses.